Here with Rich Maloney, 17 seasons at Ball State now, all-time winningest coach, Michigan 10 seasons, Western Michigan alum, coach there as well, right out of pro ball, and then inching closer to the 1,000-win mark, but one of our Dave Kylett's Ethics Award winner this year. So, Rich, thanks for jumping on with me.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Quite an honor.
I mean, you and I know Dave extremely well. What does this award mean?
Well, it's very humbling, first of all. Second of all, Dave and I go way back to when I was a player in the rivalry between Central Michigan and Western Michigan, and the great respect that, first of all, Fred Decker and Dave Kylett's had for each other. Second of all, Dave has been influential in so many coaches' lives, including mine. And the way that Dave has always conducted his business with great humility, with grace, um, class, all the things that embodies, what we try to do at the ABCA. And he's been at the big forefront of making sure all that happened in the 20 years that he served as the executive director. And for me to be included in the process and then to be in a position to where they nominate me for such a, you know, award. It's what's so great about it is just because I have so much respect for Dave,
Yeah.
first of all, first and foremost, and the respect that both Dave and I and many share for the love of our game in the integrity of our game. And so I guess I'm very, very thankful and privileged to, receive this award.
I mean, how much does that shape you as a young coach? You see Coach Decker, who you owe everything to, but you're so competitive. But then you see those two interact with each other because you're trying to win games on the field. But then you see the way that they are and the respect that they have off the field. I mean, how much does that shape you as a young coach?
Oh, well, when you watch two really icons, I mean, Coach Decker won well over 800 games, and Dave would have won over 1,000 games if he'd have kept coaching instead of being an AD. Uh, you know, and the rivalry. I guess the beauty of it was the rivalry was so strong, but the respect they had for each other was immense. So for me, seeing those two icons, watching live in action, being part of that rivalry and then developing friendships with both. Obviously, Coach Decker's like a second dad to me, without question. And one of the reasons why I became a coach, the influence that he's had on my life was just, incredible.
I mean,
And then
what
on
did he
top of it,
see in you? Because not every player that you have, you're going to feel like should be coaching. I mean, what did Coach Decker see in you that he felt like, okay, Rich needs to be coaching?
well, that's really curious because I never had intention of coaching. Yeah, I really didn't until late in my minor league career. The Braves started to show a lot of interest in me possibly being a coach. But then when my time with the Braves ended, I decided that minor league coaching really wasn't going to be the best way for me to raise a family. I had my druthers about that. And so I decided to go a different route. And lo and behold, Coach Decker reaches out, happened to have an opening, $12,000 a year with no benefits. And I would be his full time coach. And so I figured I'd give that a try. He offered that out to me, which was a big, bold move for him because he's always been the hitting and the infield coach. And now all of a sudden he was going to be willing to move to be a pitching coach to allow me the opportunity to coach the infielders and the hitters, which now I look back on my career, what he did in that moment was extraordinary because that was his comfort zone. That was his passion. And now he was willing to move for a young coach. So I don't know what he totally saw in me, but he obviously saw something because he was willing to move his cheese to have me aboard. And for that, I'll be ever grateful.
Yeah, my freshman year, we were going up to play Notre Dame, and we actually played at Western Michigan. So it had been in '94, spring of '94. We actually came up and played at Western when we were coming up to play Notre Dame. So it was good to be able to interact with Coach Decker then. I was thinking about this yesterday. You didn't spend a lot of time as an assistant. Do you feel like you would have got a little more seasoning as an assistant coach, or were you good with going to Ball State as early as you did?
I think I was fortunate. I think I was very, very fortunate. And again, I think also the roles that Coach Decker allowed me to have, it was just me and him. And then we had a volunteer crew. It was like we're we're out there alone. It's like we didn't have a fully funded staff. So it was like we became not only was a coach, so here's my mentor, my second dad. We became really close friends. And to this day, we're really close. So he's like one of the most influential people in my life and has been throughout my career, both as a player, then as an assistant coach, and then as a head coach. So I've been really blessed in that regard. But with that being said, uh, because of that, I think I learned a lot in a short period of time. So I've spent 4 years there. And again, and I think one of the things in receiving this honor and such is the reflection back on your career, and you look at how the game's changed. I mean, there was no money in the game when I got into the game. You didn't get it in for the money. Man, I was making $12,000 a year for 3 straight years, working incredible amount of hours and going full-time to school in case I couldn't get a full-time job to support my family. And then in year 4, because they wouldn't make me full-time, Coach Decker worked it out with facilities so I could get paid another 16 grand. But I had to work unbelievable hours, Ryan. I mean, come on, man. I was going to school as well as recruiting coordinator, as well as coaching. It was crazy to think about. But then, and then I get the Ball State job in 1990, summer of 95, and I get a whopping 35 grand. And I start my career. But the reason why I'm saying this is nowadays there's money in the game. Before there was no money in the game. I mean, so when we were kind of like I guess you
You
could
and I
say,
similar paths on that. Me making no money, making $9,000 for 4 years, and I want it better for the next generation. Just because we had to do that,
yeah.
I don't want that for the next group of coaches to have to do that to try to stay in the
Oh
game.
no. Oh no. I'm thankful for how it's evolved. But with that being said, we had a grind to go through, but we did it because we really loved what we were doing for the right reasons. It wasn't motivated by the dollar. It wasn't, because it couldn't be. And now the new coach, the new generation, they have to they got a lot more to think about in that regard, because they're going to have the pressures that come
A
with
lot more pressure on the guys now. When you
higher
start, and you know that
salaries.
as good as anybody, when you start making that type of money, there's more
Oh,
pressure on you, and
oh,
and
100
some younger
percent.
guys that maybe don't have the type of experience. You had a lot of experience. I had a lot of experience in it that you don't always get that. If you get a lot early, you don't always have some of those experiences, and there is a little bit more pressure on those guys.
I think I got lucky because, for one, I played 6 years in the minors.
Yeah.
So I not only I learned a grind of baseball, period. And I met a lot of wonderful people. And I mean, I played for Grady Little, Brian Snicker, Buddy Bailey. I mean, I played for some great guys, Chris Chambliss. So, I mean, even though my time in college might have been short in 4 years to become a head coach, the truth of the matter is I graduated at 21 and I didn't get a full-time job. So that's 9 years without real benefits until the age of 30 when I landed the Ball State job. So with that being said, and I'm glad I went that path. I'm thankful for that because I think it grounded me. I've appreciated everything that I've been able to get in this career. But now, with this ethics award, the one thing that I just think about our young coaches, they're going to be carrying the baton for the future of our great game. The game's evolved incredibly in college baseball. I mean, again, we talked a little bit about salaries, but the quality of play, the great players we have, the great coaches we have, the way the ABCA has grown, our availability of teaching tools is amazing what's been done. So we've come a long way and the game's gotten better without question. And its popularity is great. With that being said, ethics are being challenged now in the NCAA period. And so we don't talk a lot about ethics. And we really need to talk more about ethics because it's not about, it truly is, still comes down to why do we get into the game in the first place? You know, like you and I got into the game for one is, in your case, you had a dad who, loved the game. So he imprinted on your life without question a love for the game, a love for coaching, a love for the players, a love. Well, Fred did that for me too. So, and then, so we got into the game for that reason, to be able to have impact, to be able to, in a love of the game, to be around the game all day long. We just love the game. Now, with all the external pressures, in the challenges the new group's going to have to face, the question that Coach Decker asked me it told me to ask myself when I got the job at Ball State. He said, there's one question that you have to answer, and this will determine your outcome. And he said, do you want to win at all costs? And I've thought of that question throughout my whole career. I did not want to win at all costs. I don't want to win at all costs. And it shaped my career 100%, that thought process. Because, and I think the young coaches out there have to ask themselves that very question. Because the way the industry has moved, the way the NCAA has moved with the future of college athletics, it would be easy to bypass the integrity of doing why we do what we do. And so, because
I think you burn out a little bit quicker that way. I mean, it might get you somewhere, but I think you end up burning out fairly quick if you do it that way.
Well,
I may be
you're
wrong
gonna
on
look
that, but I've seen it, and you've been around this for a long time, and I have as well. I just see the guys that have made a career and a sustainable career have tried to do things the right way.
So I think when we're talking the ethics award is a good opportunity to bring up these points that I think the young coaches in the game who will be carrying the banner moving forward in this great game. And the integrity of the game is so important. I mean, when you get money involved and you start making lots of money, then people rationalize doing things that they know deep in their heart really shouldn't be done, but they feel it's okay because someone else they may know is cutting a corner or whatever. I was fortunate just because, one, is how I was raised. Two is having all the coaches that influenced my life. So many great people influenced my life. And then all the people that I've been surrounded with from a professional standpoint.
My dad was not scared to call people out for if they were not doing things correctly.
Yeah.
Whether it was in recruiting, that was one of the things about the convention that was eye-opening back then. You'd get in the rooms with guys, and my dad and brother would call guys out if they weren't doing stuff right. And it was eye-opening to me. And you learn by watching, and that was eye-opening for me. These two guys that I've known forever are sitting in these rooms calling guys out for doing stuff wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? Today's day and age, unfortunately, I don't think that happens as much. But I think it's time for us to, as all these changes are happening without NCAA, not just baseball, but throughout the NCAA, I think this is a time for us to reevaluate and make sure we get on the right page. And I think these young coaches, it's so important. It's so important. I mean, I was blessed. Like you have even though Jerry Kindle was older, I was fortunate to come alongside. I mean, have a guy like that as somebody to look up to. Dave Kylitz, of course, Fred Decker, so many coaches that I just have great, great respect for. And the busyness of the game, the pressure of recruiting all the time, the rat race that we all can get caught up in. I think the young coaches have to find that balance so that they can maintain the integrity and keep our game going strong. And really to remember that we're in it to impact kids, young men's lives, because most of them won't play at the next level. So now I'm talking to the whole body now. I'm not talking to just the elite of the elite. I'm talking in general. The majority of kids won't have a chance to play at the major league level. There'll be a group that'll get to play at the minor league level, but um, our job as coaches is to have an impact on them so they'll be successful men and dads and run families and develop our job's to help in the process, help develop leaders that will make our country a better place. And so, and some people look at that, well, for me, that's the calling. I that's just how I see it.
It's a true
I really do. It's pretty cut and dry. I had a guy tell me this too, a mentor at Michigan. He wrote down on a piece of paper a set of letters. And then he asked me after he wrote down the set of letters, he said, "What does this mean to you?" And I said, "I can't read it. I don't understand it." And he knew that was what I was going to say. But those set of letters were the first letter of each of the words that was going to say the saying. And this is what it said: "Did you do what you said you would do?" Okay, so getting back to what I've been taught is Coach Decker taught me, had me ask the question. He didn't tell me what to do. He asked the question. Do you want to win at all costs? Because if you do, that means that you're going to rationalize, you're going to cut corners, you're going to see someone else do something, and you're going to say justifiably that that's okay. Well, fortunately, that isn't how Coach Decker did his business. That isn't how my dad did his business, and that isn't how I decided to do my business. And the majority of coaches in our great sport, that's the choice that they've made. But I still think that now with the money's rising, with the pressures growing, I think it's important that each of the young coaches really examine why they do what they do for the good of our game. Because, man, it's a great game. We've all been blessed. It's a blessing to be able to wake up in the morning and do something you love to do and to have a chance to add value to people. So we got to be thankful. So the other question is, did you do what you said you were going to do? And I think if they get those two things right and they stay true to those principles, that when they look in the mirror, they're going to feel good about what they did and they're going to impact a lot of people in a positive way.
I mean, how much does it help you get to Ball State and you have Pat Quinn there, who all-time winningest coach at Ball State, AD. We don't get too many of those ADs now that coached. How helpful was that when you get to Ball State and you have Pat Quinn there?
Well, Coach Quinn had impact twice. He brought me there in the first place. He got me in the party. He wasn't able to, give me the job, but he got me in the party. And again, that goes back to the great respect. The only reason really was the great respect he had for Coach Decker. So being in Coach Decker's tree and being a player in the league, when Coach Quinn was looking for someone to succeed him as he moved into the administration, his respect for Coach Decker came out. And so then I was fortunate to, get into a program that he had worked really, really hard at in taking care of a facility like no other. And it was really ready for, and it was a great opportunity for a young coach to have growth. And then the second time around, I remember him calling me after my time at Michigan ended, and Ball State wasn't even a thought. There wasn't a position open or anything to my knowledge. And then all of a sudden I had a few calls of people that might be interested in my services. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm at a game watching my son play, and I get this phone call, and it's Pat Quinn. It said, "Hey, we made a coaching change, and our athletic director wanted to know if you'd be interested in coming back to Ball State." So all of a sudden I got thrown a curveball because I was going to visit OU at the time already. They already had it on the docket. There was some interest in Duke. And then all of a sudden Ball State came in the picture. And again, it was Pat Quinn. And Pat Quinn rode with Bill Scholl to visit with me in Chelsea at my favorite restaurant, the Common Grill. And we sat down and spent hours together seeing if we could work things out and bring me back to Ball State. So, yeah, Pat had influence without question 2 different times. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been at Ball State. And honestly, my whole life would have been different had he not had that influence.
He reminds me of Dave. Pat does, because there's a few guys out there that, as a young coach, if I would call, they would call me back. And Dave Kylitz was one. Pat Quinn was the other. Those were guys. Norm DeBryan at Arkansas. They didn't have to call me back, but Pat was one of those guys that would always call me back.
Pat was very, very detailed. And even when he was an administrator, he was very, very detailed, spent a lot of time making sure all the details are taken care of. So I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
I mean, how good is the state of Indiana for baseball players? I mean, Ball State's had 72 drafts, 8 first rounders. I mean, and for people that don't know much about Ball State's program, it's produced a ton of professional baseball players.
Yeah, I'm just tickled to death right now. Like, we have 3 guys in the big leagues currently, and I actually think sometime next year it's very conceivable to have 5 big leaguers from one school that just in the last few years, which is really, I'm humbled by it. I'm humbled by it. We've been fortunate to, we stayed on the plan. So I've had a plan of, and everybody knows Maloney's kind of guy. If you're out in the scouting world, I've taken a lot of long, wiry guys, and we've worked really hard to develop them. And several times over, we've been fortunate that they've been able to develop into some really good players and really elevate our program. So,
I mean, what are you seeing that some other you've done a great job of that your whole career? I mean, what are you seeing that maybe some other coaches don't see or willing to take a chance on a kid? Because not you hit lightning in a bottle. Not every one of those kids is going to work out, but it seems like you hit lightning in a bottle a lot more than some other coaches do.
Yeah, I think a couple things probably. One is I've been just blessed. I mean, yeah, I'd love to say that, I was that good that I could do that. I'm not going to take credit like that. But I've had a lot of great coaches around me that have helped. I mean, my assistant coaches through the years have been amazing. And I paid attention to details. So we work really hard, and we're very conscientious in our plan, and I stick to the plan, and my staff sticks to the plan. I'm a hands-on coach, so I'm not so we're really into. I think one of the things that has been successful for our program is, and one of the greatest compliments I think I've been given from some former players that I'm proud of and pleased with, is they said, Coach, you got me to believe in myself bigger than I believed in myself. And I think as coaches, that's one of our challenges, and that's one of our if you're going to have a successful program, that's what happens, especially at a mid-major, because we're not getting the guy that's fully developed. And the other thing is, some people aren't willing to spend the time to develop. I mean, at the highest levels, let's just be honest about it. There's guys now in our game turning down great amount of money to stay in the game. Well, that guy's an already developed player. Now, no doubt they get better, but at the same token, they already got the tools. What we've been blessed with and very fortunate with, we've taken kids who weren't drafted out of high school, and in some cases didn't even have a real dream of being a pro player because they weren't there yet. And through hard work, strength training, a process, we call it chopping wood, carrying water. They got better, and it's happened several times over. And again, I think it's a blessing of above, truthfully. But what a privilege to watch a kid grow. I mean, and then have their moment. To me, that's just, it never gets old when it happens. I mean, I'll take this kid this year. We had this Tyler Schweitzer. He goes as a recruited walk-on to Ball State. The first 2 years, he pitches about 30 innings. He's not my typical guy in a sense of being like 6'5" or bigger, but he's gritty and he's tough and he's a gamer. And his stuff grades out. He just has to get more consistent. And then this third year, Coach Scully had done a great job with him, and they he blossoms into this Mid-American Conference Pitcher of the Year, and he goes in the 5th round. So even though he's not a first rounder or whatever, just to watch the growth. That's the exciting thing about coaching, is to see those kids grow and get better, and then their confidence level goes up, and it's a beautiful thing. But I think we've been able to look at guys and project, and we've taken chances, and we do it regularly, and then we work really hard to develop the kids, all the kids in our program. And I think that's why we've been pretty consistent where we've been. We've been a pretty consistent program. We're winning about 34, 35 games a year, whether we're at Michigan or at Ball State. And it's just the plan that we have, the system we have, and we just stay true to it.
I think that's the separator for our best divisional and head coaches, is they are hands-on development coaches. You know, you can look at the better programs across the country and it's like, yep, that guy gets on the field with them. Yep, that guy gets on the field with them. I think that's a separator for our better divisional and head coaches, is they are all about development, and they will get on it doesn't matter what level. It might be top 10%. Like the better ones, they are on the field working with guys. And that always stuck out with me when we would play against you at Michigan, is you were on the field working with guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you could get into coach. For me personally,
I would get bored if I sitting there. I would have gotten bored.
Yeah, I still at this, and I haven't lost any of that energy. And when I do, Ryan, I'll call it a day. I can tell you that. But I still have the same competitive fire, the same energy, the same drive. I truly do. I love pitching batting practice. I love hitting the fungo. I just love being with the guys, and I love also challenging them in leadership. I mean, I really do. I try to really try to add value beyond the playing field, because most of them are. I always tell them, you're going to be done playing by the age of 30, if you even get to play to 30. I don't care how good you are. You can make the big leagues, but you're going to be done most likely by the age of 30. So you better have that education locked in, and you better have a plan, beyond the great game of baseball. But in the meantime, let's enjoy it. Let's go as far as we can go. Let's go.
And you are on development, but you've had great freshmen too. I mean, that's the thing. You've had elite freshmen play right away. How are you getting those guys ready to go?
Yeah, that's again, I think, a blessing that, and I have had many freshmen All-American. I really have. I never even counted, but I mean, I have had a lot of great freshmen. Funniest thing is, most of the time when we recruited them, we really didn't expect them to be as great as they were as freshmen. I'll give you a great case in point. One of the very first players, one of the greatest players I've ever coached, Larry Bigby. Larry Bigby, we gave him $1,000 scholarship. That's when you didn't have to give 25%. You could give $100 scholarship back then, okay, if you wanted. We gave Larry $1,000. He wasn't recruited. It was me. Matter of fact, Tracy Smith was assistant at IU. He offered the same $1,000 that I offered Bigby. Bigby, fortunately for us, Bigby had a cousin that played quarterback at Ball State at one point. So he was familiar with Ball State, comfortable at Ball State. And here you had this new young coach, me at the time, and he really wanted to go to Ball State. And so I caught a break. I honestly we had a team coming back where there really wasn't room for him. We had a loaded team in my second season there where all the positions were kind of counted for. And I was big on not over recruiting. That's been one of the things in my career that I just haven't been a big part of that. With that being said, so I was conscientious, and I said, I didn't really know where Larry would fit. So prior to offering a scholarship, I had this GA named Jim Elliott. He's now been a scout for like 25 years with the Tigers. And Jimmy, he loved Larry. We had Larry in camp, and I loved Larry in camp, but Jimmy loved him. And Jimmy was persistent. Coach, we got to get this guy. I said, Jimmy, I don't have no place for him. He says, Coach, he goes, can I go see him? So I let him go see him play. And he goes, sees Larry play, and Larry goes 0 for 4. He comes back, Jimmy says, Coach, I love this guy. I said, well, how did he do for you? He went 0 for 4. But I said, oh, I love him, Coach. He projected. Like Jimmy had a projection in his being. I mean, it was natural for Jimmy. And anyway, he says, Coach, would you please go see him? I said, Jimmy, I'm still trying to figure out on the roster. I don't see how we're going to manage him. Because I thought he was going to be a ways off. I really did. I knew he had super talent, but I didn't expect him. Well, make a long story short, I go see him. Larry doesn't do great in the game, but it's obvious that he has a high potential. Larry gets to campus, so I'm figuring Larry's not going to be in the lineup. He hits 5 homers in the fall, and he literally, you could argue he's the best player already on the field as a freshman. Now he was naive and raw and stuff like that, but his skill set was incredible. He becomes freshman of the year. The rest of his history ends up being a first rounder for us. But case in point, I didn't see that. I couldn't have said to you that I'm recruiting. Now, when I recruited Zach Putnam at Michigan, that was different because Zach was already fully mature. He was a man amongst boys.
One of the best high school two-way players I ever saw.
Yeah, he could have went anywhere in the whole country, and he picks Michigan, and I have the opportunity to coach with a great talent like that. But, that's kind of – we've been fortunate because Justin Wexler was freshman of the year. Brad Snyder was freshman of the year. Zach Plezak was freshman of the year. So I've had numerous guys for sure.
I saw Justin Wexler a couple weeks ago at Ohio State for the Barnstormers. They were playing Pitt Friday night, so Justin was over there scouting. So he pitched for me at Quincy. This is a good story. He gets drafted, I think, the 4th round with the Diamondbacks. And he had pitched at Quincy the year before, and this was my first year as manager at Quincy. He calls me. He goes, "Hey, can I come pitch? Because I'm trying to sign." And I was like, if that's what you feel like is best, Wex. So he came through one outing and then signed for $350 with the Diamondbacks. But I don't know how many guys would do that anymore to let a guy come throw one game, but it was the best thing for him. But Ball State and Quincy had always had a great relationship.
Yes,
Brian Bullington was there, and then Luke Haggerty pitched for me, and then Scott French played for me for 2 summers.
Well, before that, I think Jeff Urban played there too. I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Quincy and Ball State.
But what's nice about all that too is that all of those guys outside of Brian, of all the guys, when you mentioned we had like in my career, I've had about 70 guys drafted. Almost all the guys were not drafted out of high school. Yep. Brian Bullington was the only guy that I can remember truthfully through my Ball State. And don't hold me to that, but that I really remember that was drafted and actually came to school. Now I've had a guy drafted that I had previously was hoping he's coming to Ball State that didn't show up. But I'm saying that came to – so in other words, all of those first rounders, they came in as regular players and they became millionaires. And that was, to me, like I tickled. And in my career, I got to say this. Chris Getz, for example, one of the greatest moments of my coaching career.
Hey, that's a bounce back, though. He tore us up at Wake Forest his freshman year, and then he tore us up at Michigan.
I was recruiting him to Ball State.
His girlfriend went to Michigan, right?
Yeah. Well, no. The interesting thing was the reason why he went back. He didn't want to. His dad, they're so academic.
Yeah.
And so he picked Wake because of academics. But I had known the family and recruited Chris. And anyway, when he ended up coming to Michigan, the interesting thing is after his career was over at Michigan and he went to Pro Bowl and he makes the big leagues, he's in arbitration. And he calls me up, and I remember it's like maybe the beginning of December. And he calls me up and he says, "Coach, second call I made, I had to call my dad first, but then after that I wanted to call you." And he goes, "I'm a millionaire." And I remember having tears in my eyes with my wife Kelly, and we're just sitting at the table, and how beautiful that was. Just that the fact that you had the privilege of working with such an outstanding young man, and then to see him realize his dream and allow you to be a part of that and to dream with him. I mean, I got so many stories like that, and that's the beauty of coaching. And that's why at the end of the day, I'm so happy that we've raised the salaries. Guys can make a better living and get compensated for their great effort. But you can't put money on the stories here. You can't put money on having the first player picked in the draft. I mean, come on. How many guys get the privilege of coaching the number one player picked in the draft in a classy guy like Brian Bullington? I mean, come on. Brad Snyder goes in the 15th in the first round. I mean, he was going to play football at Toledo. And he comes over, bets on me, decides to go on Ball State, and ends up realizing his dream. I mean, come on. I mean, what a joy.
With Zach Putnam, was that because he wanted to be a two-way player? Reason he shows up on campus? I mean, if he tells the scouts he just wants to pitch, does he end up making it to Michigan?
I don't know. And I was so scared because you got to remember too, I
I
had
thought there was
no.
no way he was going to end up on campus.
Okay, so now here's a great case in point on that, Ryan. I had no funny money. So in other words, at Michigan, there was
Yep.
no academic money, there was
Big
no
Ten.
other monies. Okay. And there was no over recruiting.
Yep.
See, people don't understand that. Now they can over recruit some.
I still think
Back
it's the
when,
best model, and the bigger schools will kill me for that. But the Big Ten, you could only go a scholarship over and two guys over to make
well,
it
you couldn't,
work.
when I was there, you couldn't do that.
They
You
at
got to
least made
remember
it a
that
little bit better.
that was truly, honestly, when that happened, it was after my 208 team. We had
Yep.
won 3 straight titles, and then in 208, we realized there was no way we were going to be able to compete. And I said, I had 5 guys on big scholarships that I couldn't even recruit with.
Yep.
So how can you maintain? So what that group ended up doing was nothing short of amazing, because we didn't have any of the extras. We didn't have a Hope scholarship. We didn't have extra money. And for Putnam, I had invested all because he had full scholarships all across the country. I mean, Coach Corbin was in his house before Vanderbilt was the power that Timmy's built that great program into. And he could have went to Miami. I remember all the schools Zach told me, and he said, "Yep, I remember. I'll never
He
forget
got a
this."
call from Iowa. It was very brief, but he got a phone call from Iowa. That was a very brief conversation.
I remember when he told me that he was going to come to Michigan. He said, "Coach, can you come over to my house?" And that was 20 minutes away. I was in Chelsea, and actually I was in a group study, and all of a sudden I got this call, and I said he wanted me to come over to the house. And I come over to the house, and I remember Zach just saying, "Coach, I've given it a lot of thought, and I want to play for you at Michigan." And I remember his mom being there, and I just remember hugging him, and it changed really our program at Michigan at the time, because he won 3 straight Big Ten titles, and he was one of the key, obviously.
Him and Adam Abraham and
Yeah,
Jason Christian. I mean,
Jace, I mean, we
those are
had a
the three
lot. I mean,
guys. Abraham, Christian, Putnam. Those are the three guys. And Reck
yeah,
Nagel. There's
yo,
some.
Rack Nagel. Yeah, I mean, there was
That
a lot,
lineup
but
was a bear.
Zach was the that key component that he changed the course of my career, and he changed Michigan baseball. He really did.
Well,
Him and his
he
group.
was gonna give you a chance to win every Friday night. Every
Well,
Friday night.
the dude won. I mean, we won the Big Ten championship with him being a Friday night pitcher in 206 when we were picked like fourth. And now 207, 208 were phenomenal, but 206, when he became healthy the last half of the year, he changed the whole season. But it was great. But anyway, what a great story, Zach Putnam, for sure.
Have you done anything different second go around at Ball State?
Quite honestly, okay, so when you're at Michigan, the expectation is that you get guys that are more developed, because you got to get into top recruiting classes. So you want to be in the top 25 in recruiting class, you know what I mean? And it was big in building the program. At Ball State, we went back to the plan that we originally had in taking those projection kids that we had success the first go around. And so we did more of that. I did some of that at Michigan, but I couldn't afford to do much of it.
Well, Chris Federer's a good example of that.
Yeah,
Chris
Chris.
Federer was a project.
No doubt about 100%. And ended up being a great pitcher, one of the greatest we ever had, barring
Unreal.
none. I mean, what he did at Michigan was phenomenal, phenomenal. But you're right. But in general, I couldn't have. And Jason Christian was. Jason Christian was really long and wiry,
Long
so
wiry.
he fit the prototype. But then, so basically, the difference was when we went back to Ball State, we basically did more of that. We took more of those chances, the development process, and we've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of great kids, and it's been a great ride.
Well,
Sure.
and Scott French comes back on staff with you. I mean, that's got to be a big help too. That's a guy that helped build the program as a player, an assistant, and then he's back on staff with you. That's got to help a little bit too with French.
Oh, 100%. Matter of fact, that is a great joy for a coach to be able to have one of his players love the game as much as he does, and then come alongside of you because he cares about the program. He's been a part of it. He knows what the standard had been set. He helped set the standard. Frenchie did it. I mean, Frenchie's like, again, like for me, these are like my sons. I mean, they're family to me. I mean, all that whole group. And that's another reason why to come back. I'll even say this: when I was at Michigan, it was pretty cool that Michigan was playing Ball State in football and at the big house, and I had 15 of my players, Big B, French, a whole mess of them, all came and we tailgated. Big B had this big mobile home, and then they all came over to my house. I mean, to me, that was like gold. I can't even put a price on it, what that meant to me. And so to come back after you have a letdown, I mean, it was hard to having your time taken away from you. That was painful. I mean, it was what it was because we had a great run. I mean, come on, we almost won four straight. I mean, we almost won four Big Ten titles in 8 years. We lost in 2-10 by a game. And that's after having none of that funny money that I talk about because we had no extra benefits. Like, I mean, we really didn't. And so what we had accomplished there was pretty special. And building that stadium was so great. So there's a lot of great memories. But coming back to Ball State and then to redo that stadium, and we're
Yeah, I was
still
going
in
to
business.
ask you. You've been really good at fundraising. I mean, what are some fundraising tips for coaches listening in? Because you've done a phenomenal job everywhere you've been as far as fundraising.
Yeah, and it's been a passion because I think for when you're in a mid major, you have to find resources. You because the schools aren't funded enough, especially in baseball, that you're going to be able to have all the things that you think you need in development. So one thing we've always had is we do now is we have all the things that we need for development. It's pretty obvious. That's why we've been able to be successful. But what you have to do is fundraise. So another hat you have to be willing to wear is getting out there, casting your vision on what you want the program to look like, and then meeting with a lot of people and spending time because to develop the trust and the friendship and the relationships. But for me, that's the fun of it anyhow is, quite honestly, I'm a people person and I get exhilarated by people and
Hey, when you
casting
have
them.
a say you got a stadium project going on, you have the plans in place already to show people what that vision's going to look like, or you're not going in blind, correct? To ask money with
Yeah, well,
people.
sometimes you have to create the system. You're exactly right, Ryan. So one thing, I'll give you an example. Coming back to Ball State, I needed to get a picture of something so that I could put in front of some people.
Yeah.
So back in 19, believe it or not, before college stadiums were even being built, before the big boom happened. So I was at Ball State on the first go around. I had the School of Architecture. They did a whole semester. So I became a friend of the professor there, Tony Costello. And Tony had a class whole semester studying stadiums, minor league stadiums, college stadiums, and put together a picture, a vision. So now the funniest thing is I'm trying to finish that vision. So I was able to take that vision at Michigan and fundraise for that and built the stadium there that were, to me, it'll always be one of the, in my career, one of the most joyous moments was the day we christened that field at Michigan because it really was my baby. And it was based, and I got a lot of people to have a vision. In the Bill Martin, my AD, just said, "Hey, I'm not a big baseball fan, but he goes, we need a new stadium, and we need it, and I picked you as my CEO. I want you in on every meeting, everything." And he really let me run, and I'm so thankful for that. And then all the support that those people put in, and then coming now to back to Ball State, I had told Kelly, I said, my wife, I said, she goes, "Are you going to take that job?" And I said to her, I said, she knew the answer. She said, "Yeah," because I said, "I got to finish the stadium. I got to rebuild that program." And like for me, that's always been exhilarating. So having a vision, sharing that picture, and now to all the people that have come alongside the program, trying to finish that out is I think we all have to do that as mid majors, especially. But even at the bigger schools, now you got television money and stuff. It's different. But back then, it had to be all privately fundraised.
Yeah, but that helps you being at Michigan. having to learn all of that, and then you go to a school like Michigan that maybe has some resources, maybe has some bigger donors, it allows you to be able to raise some funds a little bit quicker.
100%, 100, no doubt about it. Your pool of people that could help you is much greater. So it's a much harder challenge at the mid-major level, simply because the number of people with that type of resources usually isn't as much. But cultivating those relationships is critical.
Yes.
It's critical for the lifeblood of the program. I mean, one of the reasons why we've been successful in this second stint, without question, is the support of so many other people that have decided to come alongside us and support the program. And then the university, because of that support, when they brought me back, they were making a commitment to the program in a way that they hadn't done in the previous several years. And they made that commitment. But then, like I say, the alums and the donors. But that's a lot of work that's beyond just the baseball field. So you have to develop a passion and how you're going to implement your vision.
Well, you
And
said
so,
it. I mean, you are the CEO. Division One baseball, Division One head coaches are CEOs, and for anybody listening in that wants to get to that level, that's what you have to view yourself as. So you need to do some studying on good CEOs, not just good baseball coaches as well.
yeah, and you know what else is too? I would say, Ryan, is that you also have to know in your industry who have done it. Like I asked a lot of questions for people who had done improvements on their stadium. So you have to do your research so that you have a good plan and understanding of what it is that you want to have, because you got to sell that. You got to sell it to the university, you got to sell it to the donors. But again, it comes down to time. You got to be willing to go out and have dinner with people and develop friendship. And it's Bill Martin said it best to all of us at Michigan when he was there. He really did. He pulled us all together, not just head coach, pulled a whole athletic department. And he said to the department, he said, you guys have chosen a lifestyle. A lifestyle. So you're not an 8 to 5 worker. You have chosen a lifestyle, and you're at a outstanding institution with high expectations. We all know it. You bought into it, but it's a lifestyle that you chose. And as coaches, we're choosing a lifestyle. For you young coaches out there, you got to find a balance to balance this all out. And it's a difficult challenge because you're getting pulled in so many directions. And you got to remember your family, because at the end of the day, no matter what you go through in the career, your family they need you.
Well, how important has Kelly been in all this? I mean, I
Oh,
love seeing her, but you're probably not where you're at without her.
oh, 100%. 100%. I always tell the young coaches, if you're going to get in this industry, you're going to have a success, a person who's very independent along your side.
Or stay single.
Or stay single. Yeah, I mean, those are your two choices.
You got two choices: have a better
Those are
significant
your two
other,
choices.
or
If you
stay
decide
single.
to get married, then you're going to have someone who truly is confident in themselves, so that they can be independent, because you're going to be gone quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then you need to include them as much as, oh yeah, whenever awards come that we've been able to get in the career, we've been honored with, I make sure that she knows, because without her, there's no question. There's no, I couldn't have done this by myself, because man, there's so many times, as a coach, where the ups and downs of the job, it's hard. People don't understand, man, though. Winning's hard. There's 300 and some odd Division I schools, and every one of those coaches want to win. True or untrue, Ryan? You've been in it. Come on.
The best quote I've heard on this is every job looks easy from the outside.
Yeah. And they're all tough from the inside.
Yes.
There you go. Every single one of them have their challenges. And one of the reasons we've been able to be successful consistently at both Michigan and at Ball State is I've had a wife who's been very supportive, who stood by through thick and thin. We've done it together, who's given up a lot of her time for me to have players over to the house for dinner, for, me being able to go and entertain, and me including her. And I think Timmy Corbin does this with Maggie, an incredible job. their partnership has been one of the reasons why they've been able to create this great thing. And I say they because I think Maggie's played a significant role, and I think Timmy would tell you that. And I
Well,
think
those of us,
Kelly's
us
played.
being on the board and being in those rooms, like we get to see that side that maybe people from the outside looking in don't always get to see, the coaches with their wives, and you see how important that piece is to that coach.
Oh, it's huge, and I think for the young coaches, it's so important if you're going to have a family that your wife is truly understanding, and then we got to go out of our way to be able to make sure we're setting aside every precious moment. So, like for me, Ryan, to quite honestly, I didn't have any. I love to fish, but I never get to go. I never really took up golf because I just don't have time outside of the time where I might be being with somebody to cultivate a relationship. But the truth of the matter is, I really don't have the time. So therefore, you have to be willing to give up some stuff, and then because you have to spend the time with your spouse because otherwise it won't work. So you got to be conscientious and intentional about that. But if you have someone who is really needs a lot of attention,
It's not going to work.
it's not going to work in this profession. It won't work. It just won't. So yeah, I'm very thankful for Kelly. We partnered in this our whole 32 years of marriage. We've been in it together.
And you and Alex were on the father and son series with me, and how cool is it that he's now back with you?
It's really cool, and Alex has paid his dues
Yeah, it was
because
great that he went out and was at other places. Like that's the best thing. I think and personally, I did that as well. I was with my dad, but then went out. I think you need to be around other staffs and hear other voices.
100%, 100%, and quite honestly, it probably won't be the last time. I
Yeah.
mean, quite honestly, he's an aspiring young coach who's got some good experience underneath him. He's been raised in a family. He understands the grind. He married Bailey, who was a volleyball player at Ball State, so they actually get it. So he understands the commitment. She understands it. So it's pretty cool watching him grow. And now they have the chance for him to come alongside of me and actually hopefully help him learn some of the intricacies now on this side of the fence in preparation for wherever life might take him and Bailey. So it's been a blessing. I'm really looking forward. I mean, it's going to be challenging. We're both highly competitive,
Yep.
and but at the same token, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
great.
how else can you say it?
That's great.
You know.
You've had a wide variety of assistants and some great ones. You've had some younger ones, but now you got Larry Scully there as an old veteran.
Yeah.
I mean, how has it been having an older veteran coach on your staff, which you don't normally have?
Well, I guess I got to tell you the story. First of all, I got to go back to any successful head coach has had great assistants.
Yeah.
There's no way you can run a consistent program through time. I've been blessed with so many guys that taught me so much, and I've pushed them, and they'll tell you that because I think any coach that has been successful is, like I say, detailed and is getting after it. With that being said, I mean, I had John Lowry for 9 years, which is John.
Hey, how cool is it that John Senior's going into the Hall of Fame?
And I got to tell him,
Yeah,
which
awesome.
was special. So that they're family to us, and that is so special. But anyway, I had him, and then Jason Murray, and then Jake Boss, and Chris Fetter even came back and was my assistant at Ball State. And then Dustin Glant and I just were, to this day, are extremely close. Dustin's
Very sharp.
a rock star for me.
Very sharp.
And me and him were just so much on the page. Matter of fact, Dustin, before he left to be with the Yankees, and now he's back at IU, before that, Dustin, my thing was when he was leaving was that he would play a role in helping me hire his successor. And so Dustin and I sat in all the interviews, and we hired Scully. So getting back to your point, Plus, I got to mention Bob Keller because Bob Keller won 3 Big Ten titles
He's
with
like an artist. Bob was like an artist with pitchers. He was
and
creative.
Bob was so detailed too and so structured, which was really good because John was more and John would tell you this. John recommended Bob. I didn't even know who Bob was. So that's again, John helped me to get Bob. And John thought after working with me all those years, he thought Bob would be good because he felt like the way I was wired that I could use someone who was going to be more structured.
Well, I
And
don't know too many pitching coaches that would take a guy like Chris Feder and see that size and then allow him to throw 3 different arm angles, and it worked.
well, that was honestly that was part that was more, quite frankly, kind of my DNA, that part of it. But the truth of the matter is, here's what Bob brought to the table. What Bob brought a whole system of evaluating hitters. He was way ahead of this analytic curve. I mean, he had like a guy stands in the box. Here's his weakness, like here. He brought in a pick system that was, I never knew that. I mean, come on, man. He taught me all that, man. Matter of fact, when we beat Vanderbilt, we got Flaherty in first and third. And matter of fact, Eddie Flaherty gets on Timmy every single time we're together. He still brings this up. Poor Timmy, he just sits there. But we faked to first and threw to third and picked this Ryan out in a big play that helped us win that regional. But that was Bob Keller. That was Bob Keller.
I stole
100%.
from Bob. We were at a recruiting event, and he was talking about stopwatch and pitcher's tempo. So I stole stopwatch when they would start to foot plant, and then I started to use it with hitters too for their timing. So I stole using the stopwatch for tempo and load with pitchers and hitters from Bob.
Yeah, he taught me a lot. But so Dustin taught me a lot. Feder was only with me a short time, and then he went to pro baseball, and then he went back to Michigan. But I'm so proud of his accomplishments. And then Scully is. So we went back to what we felt we needed based on where we were at, because we had just led the country in strikeouts, believe it or not, in when Dustin left. So that year we were number one in the whole country in striking out hitters in the whole country. And we've had some good nucleus back, and we felt like if we go with a really young, inexperienced coach, we might not get the most out of the experienced guys we have. And so Scully became the guy. And what Scully's really good at is he's really good in the bullpen.
Yep.
Like that's really where his strength is that time in that bullpen.
He's
And
like a baseball Yoda. You know, when I was at Western and he was at Bradley, you would just see him with the guys, and like he's got like a Yoda type mentorship with their players.
So that's his laboratory or whatever. And those moments in there, that's where his biggest strength is, and certainly it's paid off for us because we've obviously done fairly. He's produced a lot of really good ones. So it's been a great.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now was one of the best things that happened to you?
A feel good moment?
No, fail forward moment. So maybe something
forward.
you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now, it was something that was supposed to happen the way it was supposed to happen.
Well, I think, when the time at Michigan ended, it was a crossroads because I remember meeting with Kathy Beauregard, the athletic director at Western Michigan, who was coaching gymnastics when I played there at Western. And Kathy and I had been friends for years. And she's followed my career and I followed hers. And to be in a Bronco, we always just, Kelly and I, and we always just been friends. But anyway, after the Michigan moment, I went down to Kathy and visited her in Kalamazoo and she spent hours with me because I was deciding whether I wanted to go in administration, whether I still wanted to, was this a moment that I shift gears?
I always felt like you'd be a good administrator, by the way.
Yeah, well, thank you. But in the end, what ended up happening is Kathy told me this. She said, Rich, I think you would do a great job as an administrator. I really do. But she goes, I know your heart, man. You're a coach. And I think, she said, I just think you'd be you'd be
You would
given
miss it.
something.
You would
Yeah,
miss
that's
it.
what she thought. And that's the advice she gave me, and I really appreciated that. In matter of fact, when I saw her in the Mac Hall of Fame, because we were there for Brian Bullington getting inducted this past year, it was truly a joy watching her and her accomplishments. But so that was that moment where, okay, you got something that you dreamed about taken away from you, and you had a lot of success there. What do you do next? But if you really think about it, all these things that have happened in the last 10 years now that going back to Ball State, gosh, there's so many blessings, Ryan. So for all you coaches out there, um, the profession's getting tougher in the sense that people aren't going to stay forever at certain jobs like they used to. Back when, Ryan, when you and I were starting out and stuff, it was typical to see a baseball coach be 30 years, 25 years. It's at the same place, and it's just how it was. The environment we're in now, probably you're not going to see as much of that for sure. And therefore, when situations happen, you learn from them, you gather, you reevaluate, and you understand when you're in the profession that you're going to have some moves probably in your career, and then you press forward. And at
That's
the
my
end of the
other tip,
yeah,
especially if you have a significant other. You have to sit them down and say, "Hey, we may have to move, like, and we may have to move in the next 2 months, and you have to be okay with that piece. Like, we're not going to be able to sit still here because you have to take a job wherever it is when it becomes available." So that's another key component of this thing too.
ooh,
Is
that's a huge one. I've
it
been really
huge?
lucky, honest, Brian,
Yeah.
because you
Yes.
think about it, I've only been at two different
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. It
Come on,
doesn't
how many
normally happen
guys
that way.
in a 30-year
Well, even
career?
for you, 17 years at Ball State's a long time. That's a long
Oh,
time.
yeah. And here's another thing too, is that for the young coaches too, understanding moves, when to, you don't always get the choice. I would say this to young coaches. I would say, right where you're at, excel right where you're at, because here's what a lot of the young coaches, I hear this all the time, and I know it's hard for them to understand this, but they get ahead of themselves.
Yep.
I I honestly, I would have stayed at Western Michigan, and Kelly would tell you this. I literally would have stayed. I was very content on replacing Fred whenever he would have retired. They just didn't make the full time assistant job.
Same thing. I would have stayed at James Madison for forever if I would have been full time there.
I truly, that is from the bottom of my heart, truly, I wanted to be. I loved Coach Decker so much. I loved working with him so much. I loved the program so much when I was there as a player. And I thought, hey, whenever Coach decided to hang him up, I would be honored to be his successor. And I was content with serving him in that regard in our program. Well, life didn't work out that way, and thankfully in many ways it didn't, because it allowed me to grow and have different opportunities. But at the same token, I was planted right there, and I was all in. What the kids nowadays, the young coaches, they have to just understand, if you do a really good job where you're at, and then build that program so that it wins, because you need to win
You
where
have to
you're
win.
at.
You have to win.
If you want to move, Schlossnagel told
You
Alex
have to
this
win.
when we were at the ABCA dinner. I brought Alex before we was just starting out coaching. And Schlossnagel told Alex, he says, make sure you get with because I asked, what advice should we give to Alex? Slosh said, hey, get with a winner so that you're learning from a winning system.
Yep.
And that's really important. So,
Hey, and by the way, they make sacrifice. You said it earlier. Like those winning coaches, they understand what they sign up for, so they make some sacrifices that some other coaches don't make.
no doubt about it. Now, I got to tell you, another thing in my career that's been so exciting is seeing Blake Beamer get the Butler
I
job.
love it.
I
He's
got
one of
to
my
tell you,
favorites.
I gotta tell you that for me,
That was
it's
we were at
one of the,
we were in Omaha together right when all that was going down.
yeah, when it was happening. But what was the beautiful thing about that is Blake really wanted to be mentored. Not all people are willing to really want to be mentored. And this is why I'm saying really be where you're at. He was really at Ball State. In other words, he was all in, and then he was all in with, he wanted me to give him everything, teach him everything. And because I had a pupil that really wanted to learn, I could give him stuff and teach him. And I literally poured, and he'll tell you this, I poured everything. But for me in that moment when he asked me, he goes, should I go for the Butler job? I said, well, I said, do you think you can win there? That's the question you're going to have to ask. But I said, I think you should put your name in the hopper. And I said, who do I got to call? And he told me Lee. And I called this guy up and I said, well, here's the decision you're going to have to make. You got to decide whether you want an experienced head coach to, somebody experienced to take over your job, or if you want to go with a young aspiring coach. I said to him, I said this, I will tell you this, you won't find a better guy to have in that position than Blake Beamer. I said, I will tell you, you can put your search to rest right now.
His energy is infectious. He's a guy that you want to be around. Every interaction I've ever had with Blake has been positive. Whether he's feeling bad or not, I love people like that. Whether he's feeling good or feeling bad, you don't know. Like, he has infectious energy.
Yeah, well, not in the other fact is we just been winning.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's with a winning program. He knows the system. I taught him every single thing in the system that for him to learn, and he soaked it all in. And so if you really look at, coaches' trees and stuff like that, and this is what Schlossnagle was saying. Schlossnagle was saying when you're in that environment, and plus, so for me, I guess I'm just saying this is just because Blake's like a son to me. And to have one of your former captain, a son, get his chance to add value to people, which I know he'll do a phenomenal job with, is very, very gratifying. Like, I'm elated. And we had scout day together and we played each other. It was just fun hugging each other, and, obviously we're rooting for each other. I'm really happy for him. And that's the beauty of coaching for a lot of years, is seeing your guys get, do well. And I'm just as happy when the guys they send me a picture, they just had a baby, or they invite you to their wedding. And, all those things are the beauties of coaching that you can't put money on. You can't put money on it. It's such a joy.
Hey, I know you're a man of faith. I mean, is that the biggest part, or maybe your morning routine is your faith?
Oh, 100%. Matter of fact, our motto from the beginning, it's funny, I just was on a podcast just before yours, actually. And it was a podcast on a Christian broadcast and a podcast. And I started this motto, you got to believe. It started back in 1996. It went with me when I went to Michigan, and it went back to Ball State. And for me, the you got to believe is, for me, it all starts with my faith. And that's why I was saying, with great humility, I'm certainly not going to take all the credit for these guys that I've had. Come on, man. I mean, all these guys doing so many great things. Certainly, I'm honored that, I could share in the experience with them, and my assistants, we could help them out. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, come on, some of it's way bigger than me. Come on. I'm not going to give myself that much credit. I'm just not. But it's been a joy going for the ride. And so for me, it all starts with faith, 100%. But then you got to believe also believes. So from a team standpoint, it comes where you got to believe in your teammates. You got to believe in your coaches. You got to believe in the plan that's been given to you. So for me, the central theme of all, but for me, it starts with faith. So for me, when you got to believe, it has this connotation. For somebody else, it might have another, but nevertheless, it's a strong belief system without question.
Hey, how nerve-wracking was it for you? You got to get up on the main stage and announce everybody. I don't have as hard a job as you guys that have to do that, because the youth stage isn't as big, but I always feel for the guys that have to go up there and do the announcing, because you're getting worn out there for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I tell you, for me, honestly, Ryan, like, everybody's wired differently. For me, it was such a joy. It's stressful because you don't want to screw it up, because that's for sure. But so there's a lot of stress built up to the point. But for me, it was just a complete honor, an honor to go through the whole system of all the different things that I've had the privilege of serving. And again, it goes back to Dave. It goes back to Dave. Dave included me when he needed a person to be like the Division I chair. He encouraged me in the process. Then I got into the like different committees and stuff like that. And I just was always with my Christian faith, I've always been trying to be a willing vessel. And so when Dave, I had so much respect for him when he asked for something, I tried to be, to serve in whatever capacity he thought I might be able to be of service. And then he included me when we were representing the Division I baseball to the Division I baseball committee. I think I did that for like 11 years. And that was a complete honor. But then to be go through the fourth president, third, all that kind of stuff, and then get to pick the speakers was an absolute joy. For me, it was exhilarating just to talk to all these great coaches and professional people, and then for them to volunteer their services, not getting paid, to come over and speak to our body, and to feel like you could have a positive impact because you knew these people would do a bang-up job and would add value to our coaches, just to be part of that. So when I was out on the stage, honestly, it was stressful, but it was so joyous. And then you look back on it, you're just thankful. Because that whole board of directors that we're with, these are great guys who love the game.
I wish everybody could be in that room with the board of directors just to see just the joy for each other, the joy for baseball. It recharges your batteries being in that room. I wish everybody could be in that room with the board of directors.
Well, the other thing is the Mark Johnson, Keith Madison.
Mark showed up at Texas A&M last weekend at our Barnstormers. He showed up.
Yeah, so I mean, you go on. I mean, you go. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you couldn't even. But I just named those two guys have had definite influence on me, in particular, and obviously Timmy and I through the years, our friendship. Ed Blankenmeyer. I mean, I couldn't. It'd be unfair to. They're all, but in that room when you're with those people, the love for the game and the love, and this is why the award is so special, is because Dave pulled all these guys together and took it to another level of professionalism and respect and care for the game. And that's why for me in this moment with this award is the fact of the young coaches to understand that these icons, that these guys didn't get in it for the money. There wasn't money in the game. These guys did it for the love of the game, and they stewarded the game so well to put us in a position now where the game's thriving, and now the benefits are coming because of the sacrifice so many of those guys had made. And I think the young coaches may not quite understand the history of that. And for, like you're saying, to be in that room, and for me to have the pleasure of understanding, getting to really know those guys and know the history of our organization and our great game, it's just
you just come out of there motivated to help the game of baseball in any way that you can possibly do it.
Yeah, that's right. And they still, I mean, what's so neat, the younger coach needs to understand this. These guys still, they're out of the game per se. They're still stewarding the game.
Yes.
They're still stewarding the game. So it's they made a lifelong choice in this organization to be stewards of the game. And I guess that's the biggest thing that I want to send off in receiving Dave's ethics award, is that this next generation of coaches understand where we've come from and understand our responsibility to the game, the integrity of the game, the value that we have, a value to add value to young men that will be leaders in our business world beyond the baseball field. It's a tremendous responsibility, and we need great coaches to carry that baton, because these guys before us did it and they allowed us this chance. And now it's going to be this next group of coaches to carry that baton for this
Yeah, and
for
that's
the
why
future.
you and I have continued to try to help the game in any way possible, because the people that helped us out, and so hopefully we can in turn do that with the younger generation to help them want to continue to help the game too in any way, and that might be being a youth coach.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And being willing to give of your time to develop those, even the, like you say, the youth coach. Like, so sometimes you become a head coach, and sometimes you put on a free clinic for the coaches in your area. You have a youth clinic that isn't just about making money or whatever. It's about giving of your time so that you make that organization better. When you do those types of things, then
Hey,
everything
you
else.
can run a $10 father son clinic too. I mean, if you want to charge a little bit, but a parent child clinic is a great place to start also.
And one of the greatest joys that I had, honestly, at Michigan was when we started Father Son Camp the day after Thanksgiving.
Yep,
And
best time to
matter of
do it.
fact, Mike Tirico used to bring his son there, and it was kind of cool. It was just kind of cool because we just but it was so much fun to see the dads.
Yes. Yep.
And so our platform is big as head coaches, and the impact can be great. So I remember people are watching us, what we do, how we carry ourselves. None of us are perfect, but we strive for excellence, and we also try to just, if you think of it, just trying to add value to as many people as you can.
Yep.
That's all you got to think about, and then all the other things you'll get involved in will be the right things.
Yep. Yep. Coach Maloney, thanks for your time. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate seeing you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Nashville.
You're the best, brother, man. Love you. Tell all the guys I said hey.